Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom is sound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungle's deep to the captive scene, Retics rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the serpentine kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echoing rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Retic Rundown. I believe this is going to be episode 9, and this is going to be ladies' night here at the Retic Rundown. We have got a heck of a lineup for you guys that are going to come on here. I don't claim to be the expert, but these people that I bring on are, so I am looking forward to chatting with every one of them, getting some fast-paced, cool answers, doing a little Q&A at the end, and then seeing you guys again in 2 weeks. So starting out, the first one we'll bring out is going to be Nikki Tisdale of Lady Tis Exotics. How are you, Nikki?
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I think you've been on here once before, but this is going to be a little bit of a different way of doing it than we did last time. So hope you're stoked.
I am.
All right, cool. Well, good. Since we got a little bit of a different way of running it this time, why don't you give a little bit about you, a little quick expert, what you do, and then where we can find you, and then we'll bring in the next guest.
Awesome. So I'm Nikki, Lady Tis Exotics. Many of you know I breed ball pythons mainly, but I also am a big keeper of the reticulated python, and I breed them as well. Boas, I breed as well, and everything else I keep in between. I am just a big herper. I love reptiles, love big lizards, and I love socializing them to a level to show the norm that they all can be like, the same type of animals that we have as other pets, and take away the stigma of the big, mean, reticulated python. So I pride myself in showing you guys and working with them to an extent where you get to see them in a very calm and amazing state all the time.
I love it. So where can they find you at?
You can find me on ladytiz.com. I do have, I'm on Wolf Market. I'm also on Instagram. Instagram is where I show a lot of the photos of my animals that I keep and breed. TikTok.
It's back,
TikTok,
right?
TikTok is where you're going to find me all the time. So I was one of those people who was dying yesterday. So yeah, TikTok is the main platform. And what I love about TikTok is I get to show the animals in real time. Right. And that's what I enjoy the most, educating people. So
I love it. So that's, one of the reasons that, what you were just talking about is the reason that I tried to get you and the other two guests that are on tonight is the way that you all keep. So I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be eye-opening, give a lot of information. So next guest we got coming in is going to be Jennifer Valentine from Mod Exotics. What's up, Jen?
Hey, everybody.
You have also done this with me before, but not this way. So it's going to be a different round. I'm looking forward to it. So, but we'll give everybody a chance to hear who you are, what you do, and where they can find you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me back. It's always fun to podcast with you. So I'm Jennifer. I live in the Houston area. We're dealing with snow right now, which is super exciting for us because it snows here once, maybe a decade. So it's been a minute. I have been keeping reptiles for just over 15 years, keeping reticulated pythons for around 7 years now, and I do breed super dwarfs and dwarfs. I also have a number of colubrids that I keep and breed, as well as crested geckos. They're my fun little side project. You can find me most active on Instagram, so you can see all of the animals that I have. I do also have a morph market for the available animals as well.
Awesome. Sweet. So little thing about like Jen and I, like we met years ago we were modding a group. What was it called? Constrictors as Pets.
Constrictors as Pets. Yep. Cap.
Cap. I still have the sticker on my my freezer downstairs, but I still can't get on that page. So
nope, you all got booted.
All right. So our third guest is a very close friend of mine, and so welcome Abby Stone from the Curly Hair Keeper. Hi, Abby.
Hi.
What's up? Welcome.
Thanks.
So I don't know. So this one will be the first time you've on this one?
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So we got Blue here is like trying to get come on, go lay down, bud. I can't deal with you right now. But all right, so tell everybody about you, where they can find you.
I'm a baby keeper. I've only been around for about 3.5 years in terms of caring for snakes. I've been around for much longer than that myself, but yeah, pretty newbie snake keeper. I've been interested in herps and exotics my entire life though. So I've done a lot of like wild herping and just crazy exploration as a teen and a young adult. And yeah, at the Curly Hair Keeper, pretty much everywhere, Instagram. Don't hit me up on Facebook.
I don't check Facebook.
Facebook just turns into a hot mess every time. I am on TikTok. I don't post there a ton. And then website. It's all the Curly Hair Keeper. So, and YouTube.
It's very fitting. So no, that's awesome. Well, as you can see, the chat's blowing up. Everybody is excited to hear from you guys. And so I think with that, you guys ready to get started?
Yeah, we ready.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So Mike, in the back, can you help me out with a 3-minute timer? All right. So it's going to start. Nicole's got the first one. And the question is, so what initially drew you to this hobby as a whole, and what keeps you passionate about it?
Wow. Okay. So for me, I don't know. I was born with it. I think I was a reptile in another life or something. Since I can remember, my mom tells the story better than anybody. We lived in a community, although it was in the hood, we were around the water. So we herped a lot. And I would bring everything home from out the woods. And it's crazy because I had no fear of snakes at all. Like how now I will not step on a rattlesnake. Back then, I didn't care what it was. I just picked it up with no mindset of this could be venomous and take you out until I really started watching National Geographic and stuff like that. I've always been passionate about them. Now, I would say I've been keeping ball pythons since 1992. I didn't get into reticulated pythons until 7-8 years ago. And I always wanted to get into reticulated pythons, the Burmese pythons, but it was the image that we saw of them back in the day. And it wasn't until I started doing my own research and really paying attention to different behaviors, do like the vets, like Kevin McCurley and people like that. And I watched a whole lot of Reach Out Reptiles. And just determining what type I wanted to keep. And so what keeps me passionate about it, Joe, is that I keep the reticulated pythons that I want to keep. I keep the ball pythons that I want to keep. And what keeps me passionate about it is that I think I'm one of them. Like really, I don't think I can live without them. So the passion that's inside of me is just, it exudes through them. And they just definitely are a big part of my life. So I cannot even imagine not having them. So it's bigger than passion. It's really a part of who I am. My husband would tell you that when these animals can shift my mood, and always to joy, no matter what happened. December was a horrible month of loss in my family. But these animals, when I got back to them, and I would get back to them from dealing with whatever we was dealing with, but deaths or anything like that, it took all of that away. And that is what I think is magical about them. And I am a complex personality. I tell people this all the time. I'm not easily calm. That's my husband. Like, I'm not, but a snake in my hand will make me forget about everything else. And I would not trade that for the world. Like I was saying earlier, if someone told me I could not keep these animals anymore, I would be, what part of the world can I go to? And that includes the jungle that I can go to where I can continue to keep them because they're a big part of my identity, to be honest.
Oh yeah. It's like we all love you, Mike, and stuff, but we're not moving to Florida because
Yes.
I can't keep. Not that Florida's on my escape plan to get out of anywhere, but I can't move to a state anymore that just does not allow me to keep my snakes. It's not an option.
Right.
All right, awesome. Thank you. All right, Jen, you ready? You want me to repeat it, or you got it?
I think I got this. What drew me to the hobby and what keeps me engaged, honestly, it was the snakes. I went to a reptile show, just keeping for a period of time. You know, we would occasionally go to these shows and just kind of look around and see what was new and what was going on. And the first time that someone put a reticulated python in my hands, I was like, oh, wow, this is it. Like, I went home with that snake that day, and like, it's just like Nikki said, it's kind of become a part of my identity. I don't think it's something that you can just separate from yourself at a certain point. The snakes are definitely what drew me, but I do feel that I've made really lasting friendships through this hobby with amazing people like y'all that are here and the people that are in the chat. And so I really think that helps to ground you when things get really hard, because they do. Oh, Joe, that's cool. It just did like.
I don't know how it does it. It just does it.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, having friends in the hobby, it really helps when things get, you know, rocky in the community or there's negativity, and, you know, I like, okay, I just want to bury my head in the sand sometimes and just deal with my animals and forget all of that. But then I remember, oh, I've got really good, solid friends that are also positive forces in this community as well. So that kind of helps to ground you and to continue moving forward. But, you know, the animals really are, at the end of the day, where the passion stems from. I can spend hours up here in my reptile room, and I'm just the happiest person in the world. Like, nobody talk to me. I'm just going to turn on my music. I'm going to clean. I'm going to handle my animals. Like, it's my happy place. Yeah, I'm dealing with loads of disgusting stuff sometimes, but it's so worth it to keep these animals and to have their interactions. And yeah, the animals are great.
Oh yeah. No, it's always fun when you bring someone new in and then you're like, oh man, I got to clean up, and you just reach in and grab a big old handful of crap, and they're like, what? Like, do you really do that? All right.
Part of it.
Love it, right? Look for it.
I mean, all right. So have you found any unique advantages or insights that your perspective kind of brings to the hobby on the, you know, from a personal experience?
Yeah. I guess just coming from a place of, you know, keeping probably a little bit easier species. I don't know. I come into it with an open mind. You know, anytime somebody's introducing a new idea or a new way of keeping, like, I always like to come into it just very open-minded and from a place of, I don't know everything and I'll never know everything. So, you know, constantly just being a student.
It's one of those things, yeah, you figure out like what works here doesn't always work everywhere else, you know, different temperatures, different changes, and just where you're at in the States, some things work. Like, I think there's a science to it for sure, but then there's an art, you know, depending on where you're at and stuff like that.
Definitely.
All right, Abby, what you got? Let's hear it.
Oh, geez. So I was a really weird little kid, and I would just like explore outside by myself in Oregon, and there's like lots of, I remember the first time I caught a garter snake, not really knowing, kind of like Nikki, like, I don't know, I was 9. I'm like, I don't know this from that. So luckily it was not deadly, but caught it and just remember looking at it and be like, you're cool. What are you about? And being really excited to show my mom, and my mom freaks out. And I'm like, what? But why? So I think I was very lucky in that I never really had that associated fear with snakes, like ever. I have zero memory of ever being afraid of a snake, and remembered that passion for it as I got into like my late 30s. I was like, oh, right, I really like this, because I got distracted by college and like life happening and kind of everything shutting down in 2020. It was like a time for me to be like, oh yeah, I really loved this, and started exploring it a little bit more. And then went to Reptile Expo, held a snake. The first snake I held, I was like, mine, please. Took it home, still have her. It's my Colombian rainbow boa. Second snake was a boa constrictor. That was Twee. And then third snake was Aries, reticulated python. And feel very, very fortunate that he was my first retic. He was just he's such a cool dude. He's so chill. He's so friendly.
Easy.
He's so easy. And he kind of got me hooked on that particular species. And yeah, the thing that keeps me in it is they just teach me so much every single day. They surprise me every single day. It's like we have, even as an experienced keeper or someone who loves these animals, you have this idea in your head, this bias in your head of like, oh, well, you're probably going to be this way. And then they show you something else and you're like, I'm sorry. Wow, was I wrong? That's cool. I kind of love being wrong about this. So yeah, just the constant learning from the animals and then making those really amazing connections with other people who love these animals that are kind of in the same boat of like, the rest of the world kind of thinks you're weird and crazy, but then you get to share these animals with them and do that education thing and be like, well, what do you think? Well, can I show you something that might give you a different perspective? And all of a sudden you have people saying, wait, I think a snake is cute. Why do I think a snake is cute? What is going on? Like, because they are.
I mean, yeah, they're adorable. I mean, you bring a very unique insight to that with your videos and, playing slides down the rails and
oh my God, they're ridiculous.
Everything. Like, I think that's where your channel does a great job of that, showing that side of it and just the way you interact with your animals for sure.
Thanks.
Oh yeah. All right. We're gonna switch it up. We're gonna go into community dynamics. All right. So Jen, you're up first on this one. All right. So how have your intentions with others in the hobby been shaped by the fact that it's male dominated?
Yeah, so I really think that women have a superpower that, I love the men in the hobby, but I don't think that they bring the same perspective that we do. Women are very nurturing, and I think that's just natural for us. So I think the ability to connect with other people in the hobby has been a little bit maybe easier for us women. And the way that we approach the animals in general too, it's very much from these are my children, I'm going to take care of them, and let me do everything that I can that is right for them. I want to make sure that they're just at their peak, because that reflects, as mothers, that reflects on us, right? So I think that has kind of shaped my interactions in the community, is just the natural nurturing side of being a woman. And supporting other women in this hobby is really something that's very important to me as well. And, there's a couple of people in the chat that are newer female keepers. And I want to be there for them, because it's not always easy coming into a male dominated hobby and shining, really making your place. And so I feel like if there's anything that I can do to support other women in this hobby, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to be. So.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, for Nicole, she's been in it since 92. You've been in it for about 15 years. Abby being newer, it's going to give that So from your perspective, right, have you noticed any changes in the community's inclusivity, like from your start to now, you know?
Definitely. I would say there weren't a lot of other female keepers when I was getting into it. I mean, and it may be I wasn't looking in the right places, or, you know, I just hadn't been exposed to a lot of other female keepers. And now I think of groups like there's a female herpers group on Facebook, and, you know, how there's all of these women who keep reptiles, not just reticulated pythons, but reptiles in general. And how supportive that environment is. I think it's just the coolest thing ever to see kind of that natural progression of bringing women into this hobby, and them, we found each other. We found ways to support each other. So I think it's a really cool thing.
Would you have any advice to any other women who would be like saying they're hesitant to join?
If they what? Sorry.
If they're hesitant to join.
Hesitant to join?
Like to get into the community, you know, would you have?
If you're passionate about it, just do it. I mean, I think you'll find your place, and there are others that are probably having their own hesitation. So find your people, find your tribe.
That's great advice. Just find your tribe for sure. All right. Next one, Abby.
Oh, my interactions with others in the hobby. I mean, it's all been okay. Caveat: in person, it's all been really, really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Most of the judgment and hate I get is social media, online keyboard warrior stuff, which no one is surprised by that. But in person, it's been lovely. I mean, you and Garrett were two of the people that I met first in the retic community, so that was a really positive experience. Jen was another one. I'm really bummed I haven't gotten to meet Nikki in person yet, but hopefully someday, maybe. But yeah, I mean, everyone has been very, very welcoming and just very open-minded. Because it was definitely one of those things oh, you can't keep big snakes, big constrictors in the way that you want to keep them, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, but why? And just kind of doing my own little exploration of I just want to experiment and do some research and see how this goes. And I never got the I told you so if something didn't work. It was all just very oh, cool. Let me know how this works for you, because I'm curious about it. So it's been just a lot of very welcome, kind of open-ended curiosity about doing things in a way that works for me, because it's not going to be the same across the board for everyone else. And I think that's an important perspective too. And I think that is something that at least the women that I have interacted with tend to do really well. This is what works for me. This is what I am passionate about. This is how I love to keep. If you need to do things differently that works better for you, then do it that way. As long as the animal's healthy and happy, then awesome. There's more than one right way to do something. And I think the female keepers that I have interacted with and made connections with are very much on that, yes,
that wavelength.
Yeah, let's support all these multiple pronged ways of doing things well.
So being in it about 5 years, you know, have you noticed a difference from when you started to the, what you feel like is the inclusivity that you have now 5 years later in 2025? Have you noticed a difference when you look back?
I have not. No, not really. I think I hit that sweet spot of everyone's just yeah, we need more people to be passionate about this stuff, because we get attacked on so many fronts with loving these animals that are perceived as unlovable, that the more support we have, I think I came in right at that realization of no, we need as many people as we can get.
Yeah. So cool. All right. I that's a cool perspective, because that means that if you're not feeling like it's gotten maybe considerably better or worse in 5 years, maybe we are really at a good point then too. There's something to be said about that part. but I can't wait to hear because 1992. What you got? What you got, Nicole? I want to hear it.
Back to 1992.
Before the internet offered inclusivity.
So, I mean, I would say my experience has been a little different from Jen and Dennis. And I think mine is different twofold, being a woman and being a minority one who came in to keep the big stick. Okay. When I first came in, there was no Abby, there was no videos on YouTube from women who were keeping them the way that I would want to keep. Okay. Like I was not intrigued by the thing jumping out the cage at you and you show me what you can do from there. No, I wanted to see people who didn't have the thing jumping out the cage. So my drawing went to the people that I grew up watching. Kevin McHerb. I knew that Jake, for example, kept Retic years ago. Shane. So I joined the Retic Nation just to find those type of people, right? I knew they were there, so I started just that's why I joined the Retic Nation. It wasn't for no other reason, it was to find those people. But I have to say, from a female perspective, and from the vets in this community, the ones to me who really do matter, all of them have been amazing. Even through my first clutch, I only had 2 questions. The first question I reached out to was when she laid her eggs, and I couldn't see through them like I could see through a ball python egg. I reached out to Jacob, like, why the hell I can't see through this egg? Jake was like, you take eggs just much bigger, and some of them you can, some of them you can't. Moved on from there. A learning experience. Thank you. That's something I learned. Don't expect to be able to see through every Retic egg with the light when you handle it. And then my next thing was Taylor. Taylor was probably from B&T the first female that I could relate to from a pet keeper and breeding realm. But then there was Abby later on who came with, you know, the cute little girl keeping, I know you're not a little girl, Abby, but yes, I looked. The cute little girl keeping the reticulated pythons and also keeping them in the way that I think that you can keep them, that you can actually, you know, express their brains. And you can, I'm seeing things from them, like Abby said. I have one right now. If I open the door, she knows where she's going and how long she's going to be there, and she'll let you know when she'll return. Okay, like I have some amazing animals. So when it comes to, I feel like the community, I earned my respect. So now it's different for me than it was even 5 years ago. When I first started coming to YouTube, there was men who just thought I was going to get eaten.
Oh, I'm sure. And I love, you know, that you proved them wrong. That's awesome.
Oh, the amount of times I could quote that assumption. Like, yo, eats 4-pound meals. How much do you think I weigh? Anyway.
Oh, yeah. All right. Abby, you're up first on this one.
Bring it.
All right. So are there women in the community that you look up to, or do you feel you've had to pave your own way?
No, there are absolutely women that I have looked up to and do look up to. Like keepers like Alexandra. She keeps scrub pythons. She successfully breeds scrubs. Lori Tarini, duh.
Lori Tarini's a great one.
Yeah, she's amazing from just giving a different behavioral perspective and a highly, like, she's educated in that world. So she just has a different way of approaching what she's seeing and explaining it, which is amazing. You know, people like Jen and Nikki who do the keeping and breeding thing. It's like, I feel like that is one thing I've noticed that's shifted over the last 5 years is people, like, not all of my pets are breeders, but all of my breeders are pets kind of mindset of, oh, you don't have to be one or the other. Like you can breed these animals in a way that works for how you want to keep and care for them. And it can be like, I can very delightfully say that can be successful. Right. And it just gives
100%.
It gives you a different perspective on, and a different appreciation for me anyway, on what these animals are all about. And I think that's really cool. It's like, oh, you can have both. They don't have to be siloed into these two. Like, you're either a breeder or you're a pet keeper. I'm like, I don't consider myself a breeder.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a caretaker of these animals, and that's kind of how I define myself in the hobby. Like, I'm a caretaker. That's what I provide these animals with the best of my ability with what they need.
Okay, I like it. So what's one thing you say you've learned about yourself, like, through this hobby, that you would pass on to like any of the other ladies in the hobby?
Oh man, just be curious. Like, keep an open mind, be curious. Even the people coming in to, push back and judge your decisions, be curious as to why they think that way. Like, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Like, what makes you say that?
I think that a lot of times, and this is coming back to the point where you guys, brought up women are nurturers, and you look at it different. And I think that that's brought a different perspective in. And whereas guys are like very much about, it's like efficiency and let's make this work. And you guys, I definitely think, all of you have had an impact on the way that I also keep, because it made me change that thought process and not be as much as the way I was just taught,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is great. All right. Nikki, you're up.
So definitely for me, women, Lori Tarini was definitely one of the women that, just because of her being an expert, in animals in general, right? But I will say that there were a lot of females who were not really in the hobby, so they were kind of like in the back. They don't want to be on YouTube or didn't want to be on IG, but they kept big snakes really, really well. One of her names is Marquindra. I don't see her a lot now, but she was the first female that I saw literally like be gentle with and them respond to her gently. So I watched a lot of her videos, but I will be honest, the person I watched the most at that particular time was like a 3-4-year-old little girl, and that was Emmy, Ed Tualpa's daughter. And it was when y'all probably seen this clip, the reticulated python, she was exercising, she went into a yoga pose. And she got that reticulated python to go into a yoga pose. This was real live, it's on YouTube, you can see it yourself. And it was that mindset that I used when I got my very first reticulated python, that I said, you can do anything that I show you how to do. You'll remember how to do it, because I saw this little girl, even to this day, how I approach my animals. She's 12 years old now. She approaches her animals the same way that I do. No, her animal's not trying to kill her. No, they're not jumping out at her or anything like that. She does not need to use a hook. For the people listening, if you don't know your animals like that, you're going to always use the hook. But what I want to say is that I can sit here today and say there are just certain animals that I just would never need to use the hook for. I mean, it's just evident in my years of keeping them. Then there's others that, I would never. I sold Amber in the chat 2 snakes. I told her, this one, you won't ever have to use the hook. All you got to do is let it come out. It's going to come and go. That other one, you better put the hook on her first. Because she's fine out in closure. But now she's over there at Amber's house acting all bougie, like she need to give her a hard time. So Amber might get her to never need the hook. And my whole mindset is, when I wrote on the card, I always believe in giving a customer their personality for that reason. Because just because it was like that with me, maybe you give that one particular animal another 5 hours in a week that I can't give. And you can get a whole different animal than even I have. So to what Abby was saying, I would tell any woman, get into it if that's the animal that you love, but only if it's the animal you love.
Oh yeah, for sure. Every one of them's got a personality. I know, like, I've got one down there. He's a 50% like boho my marble sunfire, and his name's Kane. And Lauren, bless her heart, she is gonna get lit up by that snake because he just does not like her. Like there's no reason for it, but like the minute that he sees her, he locks on. He will strike from even from a distance, and I'm holding him, and she's 10 feet away, and he will literally just like he don't like her. So yeah, I mean it's important knowing that personality, and also knowing that you may not get that same personality out of that snake.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So for sure. All right, Jen, what you got?
Yeah. So as far as women that I look up to, as a keeper, I really had an interesting and unique opportunity to work with Shannon Repke when I was pretty early on. I was only about a year into keeping reticulated pythons. I got to work with her in a private zoo. And for those of you who know Shannon, like she's a tiny woman. She handles these animals in a way that it really just blew my mind, that you don't have to strong arm them, because what I had seen up to that point, you know, a year into keeping retics, is just guys muscling down these retics and like, oh, we're going to make sure they do what we want them to do. And they're coming out today, and not just taking your time or, you know, paying attention to the animal. And she really taught me how to, you know, use the animal's energy to your advantage. So, you know, even 100-pound retic, and she weighs maybe 100 pounds, like she was able to move that animal where she wanted it to go without just strong arming it, because it's not possible when you're, you know, only 100 pounds. And so like,
That's really cool.
Learn from her a lot in how to deal with the animals, you know, using, you know, a feminine stature, and being able to still handle them in a way that was effective. And she was an amazing, amazing woman. But as somebody coming into the community, I really, you know, early on, I don't feel like I had other women to look up to, because, you know, like Nikki referenced, joining the Retic Nation, at the time, that was the boys club, you know. It was, there really weren't a lot of women keepers in that group. There was one that stood out. I don't see her around much anymore, but Meg Allen always had such good information.
Oh yeah, I haven't talked to Meg in a while.
She was amazing. The way she would approach conflict, or, you know, somebody who was coming in that had no idea what they were doing, and people were kind of tearing at them or tearing them down. And she's like, okay, so here's the facts. This is what you need to do. And she was just, the way she presented herself in the community really drew me to her. I never got to know her personally, but I always looked up to her in the way that she presented herself in the community. So, you know, it was kind of a paving your own way kind of in the community at the beginning. But, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I've found my tribe, and I've found these amazing women that are also incredible keepers that I look up to now.
Oh, that's awesome. Meg is, man, I have not talked to her in a while. She actually has one of my ball pythons that's been there on breeding. She kept her when I went to Korea, and has been, you know, she's been doing breedings with her and made some really cool stuff along the way.
Does she still have retics?
The last I knew, she still had some. I know she had downsized for sure, but she still had some. So
smart lady.
But all right, then hang on. I lost my spot. I went. Who's up? Jen. Jen just went. That was question 3. We're on question 4. Good grief. See, this is why I got to be on this, because I will rabbit hole so easily. All right, Nicole, you're back up for the first one. All right. What do you think, you know, now the hobby could do to be more, you know, needs to either change, be more welcoming, diverse? You know, what are your thoughts on that? And I love it because it's going to hit in tiers of years in this hobby. So this is going to be great.
So I think that we should understand that social media is a tool, and it's better used to educate. Now, on the flip side, it's also used to learn, right? But it's the old saying, No one listens to anyone who's screaming and hollering and calling them names. They will tone that out. So for me, the major thing that has to change, and this is in the hobby as a whole, but specifically in a reticulated python community, is this underlying, I can't even say jealousy because the situations where you can't, it's not even where it's jealous, but it's under like everybody has to be on top. And it's not a competition. It goes back to these are animals that we keep that need to be cared for. All I care about is that these animals are eating, living, thriving, and growing. And I don't care if the person across the street keeps theirs in a totally different manner. As long as it's doing those 4 things, it's going to live a life in abundance and it's going to grow. We know that anything that's not well taken care of is going to die. Anything living, whether it's a plant or a human being, if we don't take care of ourselves, we're going to die. So what I would like to see is people to be more like back in the day, Joe. So when I say with a major difference between now and in the 90s, we made mistakes. Y'all don't even want to know what the first thing I put in the house. I put it in. Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was a mason jar with holes at the top. Okay. If someone saw that now, they would throw darts at me. Okay. Turn me into the police and some more stuff. And that's not necessary. When all it took was me or somebody else, saying, well, hey, we read this. And the mason jar is not the thing to keep it in, and then we
Right.
put it in a shoebox because that was a better thing back then. But we grew into keeping them like we do now, where we would go and spend thousands of dollars for someone to make this custom enclosure with a hammock and lighting and a big swimming pool. We came a long way from that. And I think that what the newer generations don't realize is that the people who paved the way for us to keep period today are the same people who are best to get the knowledge from. You know why? Because they made the most mistakes. And I always say experience is the best teacher. So if we can have the two, because I think that's what it is, it's a generational collision that happens on social media. And we have the two come together, not belittle the new ones and admire the old ones, you'll have a better community all the way around.
I 100% agree with that statement right there, for sure. I think that the new keepers definitely bring something to the table that, is making them, every generation is going to hopefully evolve in the way that we're keeping them to keep them better. Like, going from a mason jar to, massive big enclosures and everything, like, that's the way it should be. So, all right, Jen, what you got?
Yeah, so kind of along the same lines as Nikki, I think a little less fighting and quarreling amongst ourselves in the community is going to be better, because it's very off-putting for people who are new in the community. They come in and they see, these big names fighting against each other. I don't think that helps anybody. So, I would love to see us come to a place, a judgment-free place when people, newer keepers are coming in and they have questions. They're not, not keeping maybe the way that we think they should keep, or that, is more of a standard. But like Abby has been saying, come at it from curiosity. Let's try to understand their situation too. There is no 100% right answer. So I think, putting any judgment aside is going to just make newcomers feel more welcome as they're asking questions. Sometimes people will reach out to me either on Instagram or Facebook, and they'll, hey, I have this question. I know it's a stupid question. It's like, no. Like, don't start your question that way, because it's not a stupid question. And these are really important things for you to learn in your journey in being in the hobby.
Right.
Something that I think I've been thinking about would be kind of cool is some smaller like support circles, because I feel like when you find people who are genuinely just as excited about these animals as you are, like, it's really fun to bounce ideas off of each other in a very safe and very judgment-free zone. So if anybody's got ideas on how to set that up, I know like Abby has her Patreon. I'm sure that's a great supportive environment. I mean, different people have different Patreon groups, but just find your circle. And then the last thing is, I really think we need more of this. All of us coming together. I mean, Abby and Nikki are amazing people, and just to hear their experiences and their knowledge sharing, I think is really huge for showing that we're not all just male keepers or one particular demographic. We're all very different and diverse, and we have different ways of doing things. I mean, the way I keep is different than the way Abby keeps, and I'm sure it's different from the way that Nikki keeps, or whoever else. So bringing our ideas together and broadcasting it in this way is, I think, really fantastic. And I really appreciate the supportive men in our community as well, who are amplifying our voices and showing that there are these amazing women keepers in the community, like you, Joe. I mean, having us on here, I think, is just a huge way that you're supporting women and diversity in the community.
Yeah, no, like I love it. I appreciate it because, like I said, I think you guys you bring a different perspective to it that is, it's amazing, it's refreshing, and it is also like bringing it back to the reality to remember that you see it where it's like, okay, no, sometimes like they're not kept all the best and stuff. Like it's bringing that side of it back and having a positive impact. I definitely agree with you. I think the big thing here, and the reason I really wanted to start, with you three, was because I knew that in these questions you were going to say more names, and we've got other women in here that are like singing y'all's praises in the comments, and now that gives them more people to go out and and see and network and figure out who is that, right? And then next I'm going to have them on, and they're going to tell their names, and for the next set of new keepers, like so I think it's awesome, and I once again I really appreciate it. So Abby,
What's up?
welcome back. You're the last one, and then we're gonna go into Q&A, guys. So if you've got questions, throw them in the chat. If they're for somebody specific, make sure you put that in your chat, and then we'll hit Q&A after Abby answers.
Cool. Yeah, I really appreciate and value what Nikki and Jen have already said about kind of making this space a more welcoming, less judgmental space. I heard someone once say, I don't want you to judge me. I want you to get to know me. And that really has sat with me from both perspectives, right? Like I had someone comment like, oh, you're keeping a retic on paper. Like, oh, it's horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you're right. I don't like keeping them on paper either. Like, did you have a question about like why I was keeping him on paper? Like it was just kind of, and he ghosted that comment section, surprise, surprise. But I think when to the point of kind of that habit of ego getting in the way, and even experience where like you see someone post something and you're like, oh geez, like that's not necessarily the best for that animal. Don't approach it from an defensive attacking that person perspective, right? Like we don't know that they're trying to harm that animal. Like kind of going in with the perspective of positive intent. And
you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know the reason why you're, like maybe your snake's recovering from an RI and your vet told you to keep that high temp at that specific spot. Like, I don't know. Let's find out, right? Like, let's get to know each other on a deeper level instead of coming in with the I know better kind of mindset, the my way or the highway kind of mindset, and be like, oh, you do it this way? That's cool. That's way different than I do. Tell me more about that. Like, I don't know much about that. Tell me more, right? Like, I do maternal incubation. If I wanted to like do artificial or see other people doing artificial, I don't know how to do that. Like, cool. Like, tell me more. Like, show me how you do it, right? Like, it's just, there's so many different ways to explore how to do the thing that we love. I think we're doing ourselves a disfavor by having that know-it-all mindset.
I 100% agree. I know I would, and I'll say this: I see much less or minimal drama in between the women that are in the community than the men, for sure. But
Sure.
that being said, that's just I'm not surprised by it either. That's just the way it goes. It'll be fine. All right. So cool. That wraps that up. I don't see. Mike? Do we have any questions in here that came up? I've been paying attention to the thing, but all right. So I've got one that I want to, and y'all can each answer. I know that Jen's like kind of brought up one of them before, but are there any like initiatives or like Facebook groups that you guys would like, or anything else that you guys would like to put out there, so that anyone listening, any of the women, like maybe they don't know that exists, like the all-female herpers group, right? Like, do you guys, I don't know. I'll let y'all decide who wants to go first, but if you have anything like that, like put it out.
I would say, for me, if you don't have a group that you're comfortable in and you're not willing to openly ask a question, I get men and women who message me on Instagram all the time. And I do two things. If I can't help you right there through the video chat or something like that, I'll do a full video on it, just to post it to the YouTube channel and let you know that I did it, so that you can see exactly what it is, that I do differently. Especially when it comes to people who get reticulated pythons for the first time. And I will say this. Whenever you're buying a snake, period, but specifically these larger snakes, your breeder should be your number one go-to person. So if you can't contact the person that you purchased the animal from, never purchase from that person again. Because I will tell you that people who sell these animals and really care for these animals, like I was saying in the beginning, want you to call them all the time, ask them about everything. Even down to, let me see the enclosure and how you have it set up, because the transition from one home to the next can really be easier for that new person who gets their animal if you set it up exactly like it was. The snake doesn't seem confused or out of its element because, this is still the type of tub I was in. The bowl is in the same place. The substrate is similar, and it just really helps. So I'm not a big fan of Facebook groups when it comes to reptile keepers. I would say find your person. You see Jen, you see Abby. Find your person, but your breeder is your number one person that you should be able to go to. When I think of myself and what makes me successful, my first 5 reticulated pythons came from Jim Giles, and there was not a question. I could not ask him any hour of the night. The man had a 3-hour time difference for me. So I think that definitely makes a difference for anybody. But yeah, just find your people, or go into Abby's chat, or like you do a Patreon. Even if you do, I tell people all the time, you don't want to stay in a Patreon. Go in there just to meet other people and leave. Like, you don't have to stay, but it's a good tool to meet other people that you otherwise would see. Because a lot of women rather keep their reticulated pythons quiet.
Yeah.
I think we need to start a female retic keepers group. I'm just going to throw that out there because a female retic specific group would be really fun. Or big snakes. Maybe we make it just big snakes in general. Anyway, the female herpers group, though, that is like all reptiles for female and female identifying people is really a great group. I love that group. I mean, it's just so supportive. There's never a negative comment on anything you post. Like, everybody's just so uplifting, and it's wonderful. I love it.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say I'm also not a big Facebook person. We don't have Patreon anymore. We switched to a private Facebook group, so it's free to join. You literally just request and be like, I saw you on, the Retic Around Town, blah, blah, and I'll add you to the group. But it's the same. It's a very welcoming, like, everyone is welcome. Everyone is very, like, caring and positive focused. It's a lot of just really cute selfies with your snake kind of content and like sharing questions and like caretaking options and stuff like that. So it's really nice. The other one would be behavior education patrons group. So that's Lori Torini's Patreon. I'm a part of that group on Facebook. It's incredibly informative, highly educational. So if you're looking for a really wonderfully welcoming group, and they're also not judgmental at all. You can ask any question in that group. Same with my Facebook page. And it's a unspoken rule. Like you need to be nice to each other. You can't attack each other because someone asked a question and you don't think that was an acceptable question. It's like, nope, questions are, if you don't know, you don't know. And we want you to know. So ask the question, please. So yeah.
Absolutely. Jason says, we've seen some of the hilarious situations that occur with retics when Abby leaves town. So curious what other challenges everyone encounters when you leave your partners to manage the retics. I'd love to hear from Jen on this one. That would be
calling out Jody on this one.
Jody calls me when he needs help. That's
Jody is my husband, for those who don't know. But in his defense, he is the less medically educated and experienced one out of the two of us. So he's mad at you now.
Jody calls Joe, and then we go hang out, and it's guys' time for a little bit.
So my husband is also a keeper. He's got these green tree pythons that are behind me, but he's not a fan of big snakes, period, full stop. Mm-hmm. So he looks in on everybody when I'm out of town and makes sure they have water. But, he handles some of the smaller ones. It was actually kind of hilarious. He's going to be mad at me for telling this story. But one of my little tiny babies tried to make a break for it when he was changing waters while I was out of town. And he's like, I'm never dealing with that thing ever again. Like, it's the size of a pencil. His little tiny retic was just terrified, just wanted to get away from him. And he's just like, nope, I'm not doing it anymore. I'll change his water, but if I have to pick it up, it's not happening.
Oh man, that's funny. As he deals with green trees that like are gonna try and
look, listen, that's a whole nother story compared to retics, in my opinion. My husband would never be left with the animals. We only travel together, but my son, as many of you know, I have a son who keeps these animals very well. And then my nephew comes to stay whenever we go out of town with my son. So it's always the two people in the house with them. So for us, I don't get any eventful because what I do is I feed them really good before I leave, and they normally just chill out for the 5 days. But I do not. One of the big differences between breeding and when I wasn't breeding, I will never vacate no more than 6 days. So before we would go 10, 14 days, never. I cannot. So feed them good, come back, and they normally find it's only a whole bunch of cleanup to do when I get there.
It smells really good in that when you get home. Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I think the moral of the story is like Jody does an excellent job when I'm traveling. It's more like we have a baby that tends to prolapse once in a while, so that's a little bit more serious. Like call in Joe reinforcement, but like make snake friends that are willing to come help you or snakes it for you.
100%. We have a friend on speed dial. If there ever was a situation that needed to be taken care of while I was out of town, he knows who to call, and they're just 45 minutes down the road, so they can take care of it.
Nice.
Yeah. Since Abby and Jody have moved here, we've been back and forth at each other's places. They've been, when I was building cages downstairs, man, they were down there. We were like, had a hose going. We flooded the basement halfway. I mean, we had a great time. It was and like, of course, I'm so jealous. Like, like, I don't know if y'all know, Jody's like 5'8". Is that about 5'8"? So I have a really low beam though. I live in an old Pittsburgh house. I'm like 6 foot and I have to duck under it or I hit my head on it several times throughout me down there. And he was just able to walk all the way around. And I was just like, man, the one time.
Yeah, Jody and I were doing just fine. We didn't hit our heads.
Oh,
great.
And Yeah, Joe's over here like looking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Just
Joe's back is out the next morning, and Jody and I are
oh, it was great. I loved it. Yeah, so okay. Mike Scott wants to know, like, what legacy do each of you want to be remembered for in the hobby?
I'll go. So, and this actually comes from Mike from Herp Collectors. He said this one day, and it stuck with me. My legacy, I want to be the girl who did not just keep reticulated pipes. She raised reticulated pipes. And literally every day since Mike said that, that's my mindset, because that's what I intend to do, is raise them in a way that you're seeing an animal that you've never seen before. And I'm blessed in what I've done so far to get to experience something new with them every single day that is unbelievable. Totally unbelievable.
I love it. What about you, Jen? What do you want to be remembered for in the hobby?
I want to be remembered for being kind and being a positive influence on the hobby. All of the animals aside, I think the way that you treat people and interact with people is going to be your lasting legacy. Aside from anything I do with my animals, I think that's going to be a really important legacy to leave behind.
I agree. Abby, what about you?
I think mine would be it's parallel to Jen's and Nikki's to an extent. Compassionate caretaking, not just of my animals, but helping people who are seeking support to learn how to like observe and notice things about their animals so they can learn their animals' unique needs. So I always say, like, I don't care for an animal in a way that works for me. I care for an animal in a way that works for how that animal needs to be cared for. It may look different from how I would prefer to do it, and that's okay. Like, I think that would be what I would like to be known for.
Like it. I want you to be known for putting a snake slide all the way through your house. Like,
It's
like the little train. What was that? Silver spoons. Remember you had the little train that just went all the way around the house?
If I win the lottery, there will be signs, y'all. There will be signs.
There will be signs. Oh, man. I know there was one more question I caught. It was from Sky's the Limit, saying this will be the last one. But any tips for wanting to get into breeding, but being afraid of not being able to get customers and really wanting babies to end up only in the best homes?
Create your own lane. And what I say about that is that you're going to, first of all, you will have customers. If you are a people person and you're a person who are really compassionate about these animals, a good part of reticulated python community when you're breeding is the person who's purchasing from you really needs to talk to you. Like, it's very rare. In fact, if you don't want to talk to me, I'm definitely not selling the animal to you.
Yep,
Like,
that one.
they really want to talk to you. They want to talk a lot to you. And so for me, my biggest advice is don't be afraid, but don't get in it for the sale of the animal. I have said this to people over and over again, and you'll hear people say this about me. She wouldn't sell me the animal. I would rather not sell that animal and keep it forever than to sell it to somebody that most likely indicated that the animal is going to be mistreated or not well taken care of. So go in it with the mindset that you're going to have an animal who can have up to 80 plus eggs. And if you have 80 plus eggs, are you ready to keep 80 plus eggs? If you go in it with that mindset, the sale of them will go so seamless. It took me a whole year to get rid of 22 babies. Okay, a whole year. But those babies are where they're well taken care of. And that meant more to me than breeding to make the dot.
Kind of to build on what you said, Nikki, let's network. Network as much as you can now. Get people to know you, to see what you know. about retics. Help people as much as you can, and don't get in over your head. Start with just one clutch. Don't have any plans for anything beyond that first clutch, because like Nikki said, you might be stuck with them for a while. So be prepared to house entirely every single animal from that clutch and take care of them properly until you're able to find them those homes. But through that network, that groundwork that you've laid ahead of time, ahead of breeding, you're going to find good homes for them.
And they will be repeat customers.
Yes.
Yeah. And I found if you are passionate about what you are doing and the animals that you are caring for and the animals that you are breeding, and you are sharing that story genuinely you'll draw in the people who want to hear that story and want to get involved in that story. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I already have my target market here without even really, just from being me, right? And sharing what I'm passionate about.
I agree. So I will say this as from being on the professional side of it is whatever animals that you buy, somebody else is out there breeding those, so that you have to know that somebody else can go find that animal somewhere else. You are selling yourself much more than that animal. That animal is the icing on the cake. Nikki, Jen, Abby have all brought up really good points that have come off of what I'm saying right there, where it's about you. And so the best thing that you can do is as you're raising your animals is raise yourself in the community, raise yourself and with honesty, integrity as much as you can, and then when it comes time, you're going to have those people that are going to just be right there with your story, and they want it because they follow your story. And then you're going to have some of those where it's going to be the customer's going to come to you for referrals, stuff like that. But it's all going to be, you are much more selling yourself than you are selling a snake. So especially if you were going to be a small keeper breeder, and stuff like that, you are selling you much more than the snake. So that would be my advice on it, along with everything that these ladies said, on that aspect. So Sky, I hope that helps. But all right, guys, well, it's just a little past 8. I want to say thank you all so much for coming on here, and it has been an absolute pleasure. I hope that everyone got something from you guys. For sure, if you haven't done it yet, like and smash that subscribe button. And guys, big thanks to Mike and Herp Collectors Network for hosting this. He's running everything in the background, and he's the man. So thank you, Mike. Guys, it was a pleasure. As always, guys, we will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good one.
Hi, ladies. Bye, Joe. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom resound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungles deep to the captive scene, Retics rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the serpentine kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echo of rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.